Chidinma Okafor woke to the faint sound of crying. Her body ached as if she had run for miles, and her head felt heavy. Slowly, she opened her eyes, expecting the quiet comfort of her small Abuja apartment. Instead, she froze. Right beside her on the bed, wrapped in a thin white cloth, lay a newborn baby. His tiny fists waved in the air, his cries filling the room. Chidinma's breath caught in her throat. She sat up, her mind racing. She wasn't married. She had never been pregnant. She had no swollen belly, no signs that she had given birth. Yet here was a baby, so close she could feel his warmth. Her heart pounded. She reached out, almost without thinking, and touched his soft cheek. The baby's cries softened for a moment, and that made her chest tighten even more. This made no sense. She had no memory of hospitals, no nurses, no pain of labor. Just, nothing. Her mind scrambled for answers. Could someone have left him here? Was this a cruel joke? She stood up, dizzy, clutching the edge of the bed for balance. Her phone was on the table. No missed calls, no messages. The baby whimpered again, and something strange stirred in her. An odd pull, like she was meant to hold him. Against her own confusion, she lifted him carefully. He was so light, so fragile, and when she held him close, his cries stopped completely. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at him, her thoughts tangled between fear and disbelief. His small eyes fluttered open, and for a second, it felt like he was looking straight into her soul. Her stomach knotted. This wasn't possible. It couldn't be. She would remember something like this, wouldn't she? The morning light streamed in through the window, bathing them both in gold. Yet for Chidinma, the warmth didn't reach her. She was trapped between reality and an impossible mystery. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, as if counting down to something. She didn't know it yet, but her life had just been split into two, before this moment, Clutching the baby to her chest, Chidinma burst out of her apartment, her bare feet hitting the rough cement. Her voice shook as she called for help, hoping someone could explain what was happening. The hot Abuja morning air wrapped around her, and within seconds, curious neighbors began to gather. Instead of shock, she saw smiles, knowing glances, and even claps of joy. "Congratulations, Chidinma," one woman called out, rushing forward to touch the baby's head. Another neighbor laughed warmly. "We knew it would be a boy. We've been watching your belly grow for months." Her mouth fell open. "What belly?" "I was never pregnant," she said firmly, but her voice cracked. A group of women exchanged puzzled looks. "Chidinma, don't joke," an older man said, shaking his head. "We all saw you. You've been walking slower, holding your back like an expectant mother. Your dresses couldn't hide it." Her heart thudded painfully. She remembered no cravings, no morning sickness, no visits to a clinic. She tried to laugh it off, but her voice trembled. "This isn't my child. I don't know where he came from." The crowd's mood shifted. A young girl whispered to her friend. Two women leaned closer, whispering in hushed tones. Someone muttered about her hiding the father's identity. Chidinma's hands tightened around the baby, whose tiny face was calm now, as if he belonged exactly where he was. Every pair of eyes seemed to pierce her, measuring her words against what they claimed to have seen. The congratulations began to feel like accusations. "Are you saying we're all lying?" one man asked sharply. "I'm saying you're wrong," she replied, but even to her own ears, the words sounded weak. The stares grew heavier, whispers thicker, the space around her tightening. She could feel her cheeks burning. The baby shifted in her arms, and she turned away from the crowd, her legs moving fast, needing to escape their eyes. Her mind spun. If they truly believed she had been pregnant, then either they were all mistaken, or something far stranger was happening. And she feared the answer. By afternoon, the news had reached her mother. Ngozi stormed into the small apartment without knocking, her wrapper tied tightly, her eyes sharp with anger. She didn't greet her daughter, didn't sit down. She went straight to the point. "Who is the father?" Her voice was cold, demanding an answer. Chidinma, still holding the baby, felt her throat tighten. "Mama, this isn't my child," she said quietly, praying her mother would believe her. But Ngozi's eyebrows shot up, her lips curling in disbelief. "Don't lie to me, Chidinma. I raised you better than this. You disappear for weeks, your belly grows, and now you have a baby. Do you think I'm blind?" Chidinma shook her head quickly. "Mama, please listen. I was never pregnant. I woke up this morning and he was just here." Ngozi's face hardened. "Do you think people haven't told me? The neighbors saw you. They said you've been carrying a secret for months. And now you want me to believe this nonsense?" Her mother's voice grew louder, drawing the attention of a few neighbors outside. Chidinma could hear muffled whispers through the thin walls. Someone outside said, "She's hiding the father. Maybe he's married." Another voice muttered, "Or maybe worse." Tears stung Chidinma's eyes. She wanted to scream that they were all wrong, that something strange was happening, but every word she spoke only seemed to dig her deeper into disbelief. Ngozi folded her arms, her disappointment heavy in the air. "If you're ashamed, just say it. But don't insult me with stories meant for children." The baby let out a small cry, breaking the tense silence. Chidinma instinctively rocked him, even as her mother's gaze followed the motion with quiet judgment. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Outside, footsteps slowed near her door, curious ears straining to catch every word. The whispers grew, wrapping around her like chains she couldn't escape. Chidinma's chest ached. It was no longer just confusion, it was isolation. The people she loved most now saw her as a liar. And she didn't know how to prove the truth. Chidinma sat on the edge of her bed long after her mother had gone, the baby resting quietly in her arms. She didn't understand why she hadn't simply placed him in someone else's care and walked away. Something about him anchored her, kept her close, even when her mind screamed for distance. When his tiny lips quivered and he let out a soft wail, her heart clenched. She rocked him gently, whispering words she didn't even think about. The cries faded almost instantly, his body relaxing against hers as if she was the only safe place in the world. She tested it twice more, letting someone else hold him briefly, but every time, his cries grew loud and frantic until she took him back. It was strange. He was a stranger to her, yet it felt like she'd known him all her life. Her fingers brushed over his soft skin, and that's when she saw it, a small, crescent-shaped birthmark on the left side of his chest. She froze. Slowly, she pulled her shirt aside, revealing her own shoulder, and there it was. The exact same mark, in the exact same shape. Her breath caught. The room felt colder. She traced the mark on his chest, half expecting it to disappear, but it stayed, dark, clear, undeniable. Her pulse quickened. Was this a coincidence, some kind of trick? Or was it a sign of something far deeper, something she couldn't yet explain? The baby opened his eyes then, wide and still, gazing straight into hers. It wasn't the blurry, wandering stare of most newborns. It was focused, sharp, almost knowing. She couldn't look away. Her chest tightened with an emotion she couldn't name, something between love and fear. She should have been terrified. She should have felt the weight of all the unanswered questions. Yet, as his small fingers curled around hers, she realized that, for reasons she didn't understand, she couldn't let him go. Even if the world thought she was lying. Even if she didn't remember his birth. Even if nothing made sense. Somehow, this child felt like hers. And that truth scared her more than anything else. Late in the afternoon, a knock echoed through Chidinma's apartment. She opened the door cautiously, the baby cradled in her arms. Standing there was a tall man with deep-set eyes and a calm, almost familiar smile. "Chidinma," he said softly, "it's me. Ifani." She blinked, confused. "Do I know you?" His smile faltered. "Of course you do. I'm your husband." The words hit her like a slap. "My what?" Without waiting for an invitation, he stepped inside, reaching into a leather bag. He pulled out a small photo album and flipped it open. There they were, Chidinma in a white lace wedding gown, smiling beside him. Her hand rested on his chest, her eyes glowing with joy. In another photo, they were cutting a wedding cake, family and friends cheering in the background. She stared at the pictures, her mouth dry. The woman in the photos looked exactly like her, same hair, same eyes, but she had no memory of those moments. None. "This is impossible," she whispered. Ifani's gaze dropped to the baby. His expression softened. "And this is our son. Don't you remember? We've been waiting for this moment for months." Her grip on the baby tightened. "I've never met you in my life," she said firmly, taking a step back. He frowned, scanning her face as if searching for a crack in her denial. "Chidinma, we've built a life together. You can't just forget." She shook her head. "I don't know you. And I don't know how you have those photos, but something isn't right." The air in the room felt heavier. Ifani's jaw tensed, his eyes holding a strange mix of hurt and something darker, something unreadable. "Whether you remember or not," he said quietly, "you are my wife. And that child is ours." Before she could answer, he stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. Chidinma's heart pounded. She didn't know if she was standing in front of a husband she couldn't remember, or a stranger who had stepped out of her worst nightmare. That night, sleep did not come easily. Chidinma lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying the stranger's face and the wedding photos she couldn't explain. At some point, exhaustion pulled her under, and that's when the dreams began. She was standing in a white gown, the scent of fresh flowers in the air. Laughter surrounded her, music played softly, and in front of her stood Afani, smiling as he slid a ring onto her finger. She felt joy, real joy, as he leaned in to kiss her. The scene shifted. She was pregnant, her hands resting on a rounded belly while he knelt, pressing his ear against her stomach. Then, she was in a hospital room, sweat on her forehead, holding his hand as a baby's first cry filled the air. Everything felt real, the touch, the warmth, the emotions. She could feel the weight of the baby in her arms, could hear herself whispering a name she somehow couldn't remember. But when her eyes flew open, the room was dark and silent. Her heart pounded, sweat clinging to her skin. The images began slipping away like water through her fingers. She tried to hold on to them, but the details blurred, the gown, the faces, even the baby's cry. She sat up, pressing her palms to her temples. Was it just a dream? Or was it a memory? The baby shifted in his sleep beside her, his tiny hand brushing her arm. The sensation sent a shiver down her spine, and for a split second, she was back in that hospital bed, exhausted but smiling. Her breath quickened. She didn't know what was real anymore. If those were memories, why had she forgotten them? And if they were dreams, why did they feel so painfully true? A cold fear wrapped around her. Was her mind playing tricks? Or was someone, or something, making her forget? She lay back down, eyes wide open, afraid to sleep again. Afraid of what she might see. Afraid it might all be true. By morning, Chidinma could no longer bear the weight of confusion. She packed a small bag, wrapped the baby securely, and boarded a bus to her late father's village. The road was long and dusty, lined with fields and thick trees, but her mind stayed locked on one question: why her life suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else. When she arrived, familiar faces greeted her with polite smiles, but she went straight to the oldest man in the village, Elder Obina. He was sitting under the big irako tree, his cane resting across his knees. His eyes, clouded with age yet sharp in their knowing, followed her as she approached. "Chidinma," he said slowly, "I was expecting you." Her breath caught. "You were?" He nodded, glancing at the child in her arms. "This is the day your father always feared." She sat before him, her voice trembling. "I don't understand. This baby, everyone says he's mine, but I have no memory of carrying him." Elder Obina sighed deeply, as if releasing years of silence. "Long ago, before you were born, your family was in danger. Your father made a pact with the spirits for protection. They agreed, but in return, the firstborn daughter of his bloodline would bring forth a special child, a gifted child, without remembering the birth." Chidinma's fingers tightened around the baby. "Why without remembering?" "It is the way of the spirits," he said. "If you knew, you might resist the destiny set for him. Forgetting ensures the pact is fulfilled." She shook her head, disbelief and fear mixing in her chest. "So you're saying, this child is mine because of a deal my father made before I even existed?" "Yes," Obina replied gravely. "And now that he is here, the pact's purpose will soon reveal itself. But be warned, the gift comes with a price." The wind stirred the leaves above them, carrying a chill down her spine. She wanted to run, to pretend none of this was real. But the baby's eyes were on her again, deep, knowing, and impossible. In the days that followed her visit to the village, Chidinma began to notice changes that made her uneasy. The baby was only a few days old, yet his body seemed to grow faster than nature allowed. His tiny fists became stronger, his gaze sharper, and his movements more deliberate. What unsettled her most was his eyes. They didn't wander aimlessly like other newborns. They locked onto hers with an intensity that felt too knowing, too aware. Sometimes, it felt like he was studying her, reading her thoughts. Then came the strange events. One evening, as she fed him, the light bulb above them flickered wildly. At first, she thought it was just faulty wiring, but the moment he stopped crying, the light steadied. Another day, when his wail echoed through the room, the door, which had been shut, creaked open on its own. She tried to dismiss it as coincidence, but it kept happening. Whenever his cries filled the air, something around them would react, a cup trembling on the table, the curtains swaying though the windows were closed, even a faint hum in the air like electricity. At night, she would watch him sleep, his small chest rising and falling, and she would feel both comforted and unsettled. The connection between them was still strong. When he smiled, warmth filled her heart, yet deep down, a quiet fear grew. One afternoon, she caught her own reflection in the mirror as she held him and realized she was staring at him with both love and suspicion. How could she love something she didn't fully understand? The villager's words, her mother's accusations, and Elder Obina's revelation all tangled in her mind. Was this the gift the spirits had promised? And if so, what kind of power had they placed in her arms? That night, as the lights flickered once more and the baby's dark eyes glimmered in the dim room, she whispered to herself, "What are you?" But the only answer was the steady, almost knowing gaze of the child she couldn't let go, and couldn't stop fearing. Elder Obina sent word for Chidinma to return to the village. She arrived with the baby wrapped close to her chest, his curious eyes scanning everything around them. The elder sat waiting under the same irako tree, his expression heavier than before. He gestured for her to sit. "The time has come for you to decide," he said quietly. Her stomach tightened. "Decide what?" He looked at the child and then back at her. "The pact your father made is bound to you now. If you keep this child, the spirits will tie your fate to his. Your life will no longer be yours. Every step you take, every choice you make, will serve the purpose they have chosen." She swallowed hard. "And if I don't keep him?" The elder's eyes darkened. "There is a ritual, old and dangerous. If you agree, we will give him back to the spirits. He will live, free of the curse, and you will forget him completely. His face, his name, even the memory of holding him, all gone. But he will be safe." Her arms tightened around the baby. The thought of forgetting him felt like a blade slicing through her chest. "So either I lose my life as I know it, or I lose him forever?" Obina nodded slowly. "It is the way of the pact. There is no third path." The baby stirred, his small hand curling against her skin. She felt that strange, unbreakable bond tug at her heart again. Could she really hand him over to be raised by forces she didn't understand? Could she accept never remembering the sound of his tiny cry? Tears blurred her vision. The elder said nothing more. The choice was hers, and hers alone. As the wind rustled through the leaves above, Chidinma realized this decision would not only shape her life, it would decide his destiny. And whichever path she chose, a part of her would be lost forever. The night of the ritual was heavy with silence. The moon hung low, casting a pale light over the village square. Chidinma stood before Elder Obina, the baby swaddled in soft cloth, sleeping peacefully in her arms. Every instinct told her to run, to hold him tighter, but she forced herself to stand still. Her tears fell freely, wetting his tiny forehead. "You must not speak once it begins," the elder warned. "If you do, the bond will remain." She nodded, though her voice trembled inside her chest. The villagers formed a circle, chanting in a language older than memory. A fire crackled at the center, sending sparks into the dark sky. Obina stepped forward, his hands outstretched. Chidinma hesitated. The baby's eyes fluttered open, and for a brief moment, they locked on hers, deep, calm, and knowing. Her knees weakened. She pressed her lips to his forehead one last time, her heart breaking in silence, and then placed him into the elder's arms. The chanting grew louder, the air thick with heat and something unseen. A sudden wind swirled around them, lifting dust into the air. Chidinma's vision blurred, her thoughts scattering like leaves. When she woke the next morning, she was in her bed. The room was quiet, the sun spilling in through the curtains. Her arms were empty. She sat up slowly, feeling an odd emptiness in her chest. She looked around, confused, sensing that something, someone, was missing. But no image came to her mind. No name. No reason for the heaviness pressing against her heart. She rubbed at the ache, wondering why she felt as if she'd lost something precious, though she couldn't remember what it was. She rose, went about her morning, but the feeling never left. It was a quiet pain, buried deep, without a face or a story, only the echo of something she could not name. Somewhere in the distance, a child's laugh drifted on the wind. She paused, listening, her chest tightening for reasons she didn't understand. "Some bonds are deeper than me,"